ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
You're listening to House of Cards.
Today, the game is different.
I want to gamble. Gambling is a very serious business. Is that clear?
Welcome to House of Cards. Dave Weishaupt with you here, deep from the swamps of Jersey. We got a great show coming up for you. Some huge stories coming out of the gambling world. One of the industry's biggest conventions, G2E, just wrapped up in Las Vegas. We are partway through the football season, and the sports betting industry is just chugging along. And a couple of states broke sports betting records. And we're going to talk about all that with our guest coming up. You've read his work on usbets.com, SportsHandle, and some other great sites from Better Collective. And of course, you've heard him here on the show before. When we come back, we're talking with Chris Altruda, who's going to fill us in on what's going on in the gambling world. So stick around. We'll be right back with House of Cards.
Yeah, you, come here. Haven't you heard? We don't need to hide anymore. Now, we can shop privately for adult products at adamandeve.com. They've got massage oils, lingerie, and lots more we can't mention here. Use offer code SPICE404. They'll give you 50% off almost any one item, 3 free DVDs, free mystery gift, and free shipping. That's 50% off, free shipping, and more. Private shopping starts at adamandeve.com.
You're listening to House of Cards.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Welcome back to House of Cards. Dave Weishaupt with you. Lots of things are happening in the gambling world. The industry's largest convention, called G2E, just ended in Las Vegas. It's been an incredibly interesting football season so far for the sports books, and a couple of states are making some news in the gambling industry. And as always, when we want to find out the latest about what's going on with the casinos and sports books, we talk to our friends at Better Collective. And on the line, we have one of their great writers who's been on the show before. You can read Chris Altruda's work on SportsHandle.com and usbets.com, and we are lucky to have Chris on the line with us right now. Chris, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Dave. Always a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into it, it's already snowed in Chicago where you're at right now this year, right?
Yes, we technically received, I guess, what was called a trace of snow at O'Hare.
Oh, okay.
Which started the massive wailing and gnashing of the teeth that winter is probably 2 weeks away.
I mean, and you just got back from Las Vegas, too, so that's really not fair. So coming from the desert into a snowstorm. But like I said, the gambling industry wrapped up one of its biggest conferences in Las Vegas, where you were just at. It's called G2E, or Global Gaming Expo. And I certainly know you were out there because I follow you on Twitter, which you're a great Twitter follower. First off, I want to get your reaction to the crowd. I know leading up to the conference, everyone was expecting just enormous crowds at this conference. What was your opinion of the crowds, and what was your opinion on the conference overall?
I remember, I usually keep in touch with my parents fairly regularly because they're curious when I go to these things. It was productive but tiring, which I think was the conference you wanted to have after last year. Mm-hmm. There's obviously you get a swell in attendance because the foreign contingent made the trip this year. So there's 25,000 of us running around this expo area, and it's just one of many things going on in Las Vegas. It doesn't overwhelm the city by any stretch of the imagination. But it was good in the sense that you wanted to network and you had the opportunities to network on top of the educational sessions. The expo hall itself was bigger and brighter, and it never ceases to amaze me just how large the slot stuff is. It kind of, in some respects, it's, it's the putting the sports betting stuff, despite all the pub and all the ink, it still puts it back in its place when you see some of these programs, the reels, just the sharp graphics, everything about the slots is still absolutely mind-blowing at times.
G2E is always a great event because deals are being made there and new innovations in the gambling world are always showcased there. Now, you're a writer in the gambling industry. What did you take away as some of the big stories coming out of G2E this year?
I think we're at that point where we're waiting for this DraftKings ESPN deal to finally happen. Jason Robbins, who was one of the keynote speakers, did the dutiful evasive dance that we're all used to, of saying everything without saying anything when he was on the panel. I thought, and for the life of me, I don't remember the Wynn executive's name, who was also on that panel. They wisely broke it up into 3 two-person segments, and he offered some interesting corporate strategy on how Wynn works. It was more central to Las Vegas, but still interesting. And you had Jay Snowden and Sue Kim talking about casinos, and from a local standpoint, I was a little disappointed Sue Kim didn't really go into a little more depth about building this casino in downtown Chicago, although they've kind of veered more towards omni-channel, which is something Bally's has really been trying to, I don't think get a grip around, because that's kind of a backhanded compliment, but they are one of the forerunners in trying to bring this together. And it was an interesting discussion to see how they're going to try and make that work going forward. But there was a lot there. The educational sessions were always interesting. We're at that point now where there's a little bit of inflection of how do you get to profitability like FanDuel already has, and how DraftKings is probably closer to that than anyone else in the space. And there's talk of e-games, there's talk of casinos, and all the stuff that goes on around it. So, I mean, there's no lack of action, let's put it that way. And also specific to sports betting, you have new innovations on the app platforms, such as Sport Trade with betting exchanges and things like that. So there's plenty going on.
Yeah,
it's like, again, no lack of action. Sometimes like just funneling it into a straight line is challenging.
I didn't make it out to G2E this year, but the last couple of conferences I've been to over this last year, I mean, I've heard the words metaverse or NFTs and cryptocurrency thrown around on exhibition floors and during conferences and during meetings. Are you seeing a lot of that at G2E? And is that, I mean, are we going to hear more and more about the metaverse and NFTs this coming year?
I didn't hear much on metaverse and NFT. Okay. Jay Snowden and Sue Kim put omni-channel to the point where it almost became like the monorail Simpsons gag during their segment. So I think that might have been the bigger buzzword of the conference, although it was actually kind of funny because the following day Erica Nardini was a keynote speaker, and she didn't dismiss the omni-channel, but at the same time she said it is so difficult to get around because there's so many moving parts, and it's hard to believe that like anyone could master it right now at this point. So it was kind of entertaining to listen to her take on it from a media perspective as CEO of Barstool Sports as opposed to Penn Gaming side of it.
Stick around. We'll be right back with more House of Cards.
Drizzly makes it easy to shop a huge selection of beer, wine, and liquor from wherever I am. I just open the app, find what I want, and it's at my door in under 60 minutes.
Drizzly. Ding dong, Drizzly.
You're listening to House of Cards.
Where was the house? Where was the House of Cards?
Welcome back to House of Cards. Dave Weishuttle with you. For those of you just joining us, I am talking with Chris Altruda from SportsHandle.com, USBets.com, and Better Collective. Now, one of the great things about G2E is that it's held in Las Vegas, and as I said, I follow you on Twitter, and I know you hit Circa, which I'm dying to check out. Now, you were at Circa and Circa Swim, and I saw you had a couple pictures there on Twitter. So give me a quick review of Circa. I want to get the lowdown on that place because, like I said, I can't wait to visit it.
The sports betting part of it itself is just insane.
Yeah.
You walk in, you make a quick right, and all of a sudden you just see this video wall that, was everything you hoped and dreamed was as a 9-year-old when you first started, watching sports on television, playing video games. It's 2 stories tall. It's got 18 different games on it. It has betting lines on it. You just sit there and you just like slack-jawed at it for about 30 seconds. And then you're like, oh yeah, I got to play some bets too. With Nevada being an in-person registration to get the app, it's easier to do it in person in terms of making the bets. I was there for Game 2 of the Padres-Dodgers series, and I had gotten there later than I wanted. I actually wanted to put a bet down pregame, and the next thing I knew from writing, it was like the 3rd inning by the time I left the hotel to get down there. So I got to the 5th, and it's Vegas, and you're already out of sorts to begin with, not really thinking at full speed. And I went to make an in-game wager, and I had forgotten that you have to wait between innings to do that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was just like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So sit down, wait 3 minutes, and then make the bet. And by that point, you walk around. The tables are good. There's it's definitely a younger person's casino. I think that's part of the Fremont Street experience at this point. They've renovated and revitalized. And Stadium Swim is just, it's a great concept. I mean, bottom line, it's just gorgeous. It's the best $20 you'll spend to go into something, and plenty of choices for alcohol. The screen setup is absolutely intense and enjoyable. And nighttime Vegas weather is underrated. That was my other takeaway from
really?
it. It was 80 degrees. There was no wind, and just sitting on a reclining chair at 9:15 at night.
I think that was one of their pictures.
Watching.
Yeah, that was one of your pictures I saw.
Yeah, just watching baseball, and I'm not a big baseball fan in general, but I like Yu Darvish. He's just fascinating to watch from just a player standpoint. But enjoying Vegas night weather is really an underappreciated selling point, and I think that's one of the biggest things that Circa Stadium Swim has going for it. Every night it doesn't rain there, it has the potential to be a great night.
One of the things about Circa is that I've been fascinated by following what's going on at the Circa's betting contest that they have there. And it's just been a bloodbath with people getting knocked out every week in huge numbers. And the word bloodbath has also been used to describe what recreational bettors have been going through this football season. And you use it too. I have an email from you, and you use the word bloodbath in it. So give us a sense of how the books have been doing for the first couple of weeks of the football season.
It's really been it's unprecedented of anything I've seen in the now almost 3 years I've been with the company. And doing the revenue database, it's a little easier to glean some historical perspective in terms of numbers. But this has just been, if you're the betting public, you're just going home with your head in your hands almost every week. We've had 16 states provide full numbers in terms of revenue and handle. I'm still waiting on Kansas's gross revenue because there were so many promotions that the adjusted revenue hold was less than 1% because of all the promotional play. But the 16 states that have given full numbers, all of them have had a hold of 11% or higher, which is just beyond. We've already set a national record for state tax revenue just from those 16 states. That doesn't include Nevada when it hits. That doesn't include Illinois. That doesn't include Virginia. It doesn't include Colorado. It doesn't include Arizona. There's another arguably 25 to 30 million in state taxes at least out there.
Wow.
Maybe more. And with that, there's also more handle. Nevada will bounce back to somewhere probably within the 750 million vicinity, if not more, because it's football season. Illinois will skyrocket to probably 800 million. Virginia will get near $500 million. So you're getting the typical spiral of numbers that comes with the start of football season. The unexpected spiral just comes with the public just faring horribly because unders are hitting at a clip, and no one has really gotten a grab of this season in terms of teams playing from week to week. And when that happens, you get the bleed over into parlay wagering when one leg can screw up everything.
Yeah.
So it's already that you have this 11% overall hold that hides the fact that parlay wagering in multiple states we've seen so far is pushing easily above 20%. Even for Illinois in August, it was 22.5. Mississippi this month was 30, which is, granted, it's only in-person wagering, but still $3 out of every 10 going to the house is kind of obscene. And even New Jersey for September was 22.7. So people are losing in multiple areas and just kicking that revenue higher and higher for the house.
I was going to hit the parlays, but you brought it up. Let me ask about it now. I mean, you mentioned New Jersey. I'm sitting here in New Jersey, and they are really part of the marketing of the sports book. The same game parlays and the promos, it's mostly parlays. I mean, a lot of the mobile sports books in the state have these special promos. Like, you go down Sunday morning and you have something pops up on your screen and says, hey, here's a great promo. All local teams win. Jets, Giants, and Eagles, plus 400, or something like that. Are the promos and parlays driving these numbers that we're seeing in the start of this football season?
I think it's definitely a strong portion of it.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I mean, this is year 2 of the NFL's public embrace of wagering.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things is that the books don't have to do traditional ad spend. You've noticed that there's less ads on TV. There's less ads during football games. So instead, they're channeling that to these promotional plays, which is their right. The question is whether or not you do it to such a saturation point that a bettor's going to go, you know what? I've done this 3 times. I've lost 2 of them, or I've lost 4 out of 5. Because, again, we're talking 20%. And there's going to be a point where you just look at it as a bettor and go, you know what? Going back to single event.
Mm-hmm.
I have a better chance. It's easier to try and reach 52.5% to be profitable on a single event wagering than it is putting together these 3 and 4. And that's the other thing. We as people in this space rarely go into these 7 and 8 leg parlays.
Yeah.
As I joke with my friends, you're turning it into a lottery ticket.
Yeah,
that's
basically what you're doing, yeah.
And, we stop at 3 or 4. And again, part of the allure is hitting it when you only throw $1, $5, $10 at it.
Sure.
At the same time, when hundreds and thousands of people are doing it, that revenue adds up quickly to the house.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's going to be a point where people are going to start moving away from it if they can't solve the NFL. And then you might see it come back a little. So
stick around. We'll be right back with more House of Cards. Hey, this is Dave Weishuttle from House of Cards with your House of Cards gaming report for the week of October 24th, 2022. Ohio's gambling industry has had 2 record-setting revenue months in a row in August and September. The state's 11 casinos and racinos reported $188.6 million in revenue in September, which is up from $185.4 million from September of 2021. Ohio's 7 racinos reported $107.2 million in revenue. The state's 4 casinos took in $81.4 million. For the first time in 10 years, taxes from Indiana's gambling industry brought in more than $1 billion to the state. Between July 2021 and June of 2022, Indiana received $1.04 billion in taxes, which is an 8% increase from the prior fiscal year. This is the first time since 2012 that Indiana's gambling industry broke the billion-dollar marks for tax revenue. And finally, another name could be added to Nevada's infamous Black Book. According to a report from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Nevada's Gaming Control Board nominated Leonard Morgan Harrison to be the 37th person placed on the state's excluded persons list. According to the report, Harrison has been arrested 34 times for various crimes involving fraud with fake casino chips. Have any news or tips regarding casinos, gaming, or legislation? Send us an email at newsroom@houseofcardsradio.com and follow us on Twitter at HOC Radio.
You're listening to House of Cards.
I'm talking sick piles of money. I'm talking lay on your bed in your Vegas room, throw the money in the air, and dance as it showers down on you money. I'm talking frosted glass limo money. I'm talking big cowboy hat, silver turquoise buckle money. I'm talking gambling.
I am in love with you.
Welcome back to House of Cards. Dave Weishuttle with you. For those of you just joining us, I am talking with Chris Altruda from SportsHandle.com, USBets.com, and Better Collective. One of the things that everyone has been talking about is there have been such parity, especially in the NFL this year, among the teams. And as you said, the unders have been hitting, I guess, at an historic rate. I knew it was a weird football year for me because I'm actually making money betting on the New York Jets, which has never happened before. So, 2 weeks in a row, oh my God. I mean, but the fact that there has been no real dominant team in the NFL this year, I mean, is that really driving the numbers as well?
I'm not sure. I always envision that sports betting in states where it's legal is for the NFL is driven by the local team. Obviously, There are people who study it deeper and can go deeper and find plays that they feel are advantageous. I think if it was as prevalent as we think, for example, with New York, with the Jets and Giants being a combined 9-3, one would imagine that the New York mobile handle, which comes out weekly, would be starting to bump a little faster.
Yeah.
The last 3 weeks, it's been a narrow range of within 5 million of 319 to 323 million. It hasn't moved off that yet, which begs the question: one, are people not really convinced that the Jets are Giants? And as a Jets fan, we're just sitting here waiting for the other shoe to drop at some point. But another factor is that not only have sports books maybe pulled back on ad spend, they may have also pulled back on promotional spend. They don't have to entice people who are already there at such an extensive rate. So you're seeing less promotions, which may put a drag on handle that we thought was going to be there after the way New York started out like gangbusters.
Yeah.
Or maybe the way that you got the surge from November through January that you were expecting to repeat as a cycle in September and October, and you really haven't seen it come in large doses yet. September handle year over year is going to be larger, partly because there's more states involved, but partly because the NFL is still this 8,000-pound gorilla that's going to just be there every Sunday for you. I think right now the handle to me for the NFL may be a little slower than we thought. And it could be because there's not a dominant team that no one can week in and week out say, yeah, I'm putting my money on that. It's a riddle. You want to solve the riddle. You want to win the riddle and make money. The longer it takes for you to do that, the more conservative you get in terms of the amount of money you wager as well.
Well, you mentioned New York, and I know before the football season, I said I'd be fascinated to see the numbers coming out of New York in the fall, because this is really the first football season that they have mobile sports betting in that state. Did anything surprise you so far with regard to New York numbers? Were you expecting one thing coming out of New York and you're seeing something else, or are you thinking this is what New York, I was thinking that would happen in New York?
I think I thought the handle would be a little higher. I was tasked with trying to forecast NFL handle for New York, which is a little bit of a fool's errand because they don't break out numbers by sport.
Yeah.
But I think what I didn't account for was this pullback on promotional spend as opposed to advertising spend. And there are people who will wait for those promos before they play and play regularly and increase the handle and increase the volume. So I think there's been a little bit of a drag there. I think you have the proper stratification of the 9 books. FanDuel's dominance in the parlay marketplace that is translated in terms of their win rates is just absolutely unbelievable in some respects. I mean, they've cleared a 10% hold in 10 of the last 12 weeks. Or no, wait, let me rephrase that. I'm looking at it right now. 11 of the last 12 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And their overall hold is 9.5% in New York since launch. They're just shy of 5 billion handle, which on its own could rank about 5th in the nation for the year.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So it's the revenue. The revenue doesn't surprise me based on what's been happening, but I think I felt the handle would have been a little larger to this point, and it still may get there. There's five Sundays in October. You may see the NFL. You may see teams finally get their acts together and be the teams we thought they were going to be, but I think I underestimated the lack of a promotional spend in what is now a pre-existing market when it comes to New York.
I want to jump to the state you're in now, Illinois, and Illinois is just an incredible gaming state. First off, I want to ask you about Illinois in August jumped over New Jersey for the top handle in the country. I guess you're second behind New York. What's going on in Illinois with regard to the sports betting in market in there?
My sarcastic answer was people were hate betting the White Sox and Cubs all year, especially the White Sox, because everyone had so many expectations for them this year, and they just fizzled. There's no other way to say it. It's a strange. I won't say it's a strange state. It's a curious state. The Cubs were predictably awful, but that didn't stop people from betting on baseball.
Sure.
And also, again, this is another state where people will parlay like there's no tomorrow. And when you keep coming back to these 20% holds on that category, and you keep seeing that parlays account for more than half of the sports operator revenue, it's not going to stop anytime soon. Whether they can hold this number 2 spot in the fall will be interesting, because now we're starting to see how much New York drags on New Jersey's handle. Mm-hmm. We got a little bit of that with September, where it was about 14.3%, I think, lower than September from 2021, and it was almost exclusively all NFL wagering, which was kind of interesting as well. So whether Illinois can take advantage of that drag while having a Bears team that started out fast, but at the same time is now reverting to the expected form of being a rebuilding team that has pretty much no offensive weapons except for Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. it will be interesting to see if people continue to wager at a high clip, whether people did what they did last year, which was fade the Bears at various points and try and keep that handle above. I think while we won't see it, the actual numbers for October until early December with the way Illinois reports, I would not be surprised if this state did $1 billion handle for October.
Wow.
It might just be over the number, but I wouldn't be surprised by it. I think the fact that they have 7 operators now with BetMGM entering in March, and another part of it is they have the right 7. Mm-hmm. And this is not, I'm not saying this to degrade any other operators out there because everyone is good in their own way, but you have the 7 with the highest visibility. You have your FanDuel, you have your DraftKings, you have your you now have your BetMGM, you have BetRivers, you have PointsBet, you have Barstool, and you have Caesars. Those are the 7. And while there's still 3 mobile-only licenses out here waiting to be grabbed for a mere pittance of $20 million, grabbing that market share entering the state is going to be very hard with those 7 now entrenched.
Now, Illinois is also making some big news in casino gambling as well. I want to get an update on what's going on in the Hard Rock Casino in Rockford. What's the latest on that property? I know they had opened a temporary casino a while back, and I'm curious to hear how that project is progressing.
So the Hard Rock has the temporary casino is still up. It's a casino in a tent, which is kind of cool in a
that's pretty cool,
kitschy sort of way.
Yeah.
It's exclusively slots at this point, so it does usually between $4 million and $5 million in revenue a month, which is fine. It's slots. But they recently broke ground on the permanent venue about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
I made the hour-plus drive up there. And one of the takeaways from it was Rockford was a community that not only wanted gaming, but they wanted Hard Rock gaming. And sometimes that's a very big deal in terms of a success or failure of a venue. And it was apparent talking to the mayor, talking to Hard Rock people who are operating in a temporary venue. There is a two-way street of affection and admiration. And they're ready to take this step and open this casino late next year. They're ready to ramp up, triple in size when it comes to the amount of employees they're going to have. And from a kitschy standpoint, having the Cheap Trick guitar motif visible from I-90,
that's
kind
pretty
of
cool. Well, let me ask you, when is the date when the permanent property will open for the Hard Rock in Illinois?
They have targeted that for late next year. And one of the other things is there is an urgency to be on time with that project when you consider that Ho Chunk Nation just over the state line in Beloit, Wisconsin, is likely going to be breaking ground on their proposed casino.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right around the time Hard Rock opens.
Wow. So
the faster might not be the right word because Ho Chunk hasn't formally established a timeline, but Hard Rock sticking to its timeline to open that casino and getting and making that beachhead and making sure people know, and also opening a hotel would be another key part of this, is that you have this, I want to say, multi-hundred room hotel to further augment the casino amenities will be pivotal in being a success up there.
Well, speaking of Hard Rock also has a presence in the state of Virginia, and you wrote about Virginia in SportsHandle.com. What's the latest coming out of Virginia, and how is their sports betting industry doing up until now?
Their sports bet, Virginia got it. It's almost like the Winston Churchill quote: "Americans are great because they'll do everything until the last option to get it right."
Yeah.
In some respects, that's what Virginia did with its state legislature regarding promotional spend and promotional revenue for sports betting. They inserted an amendment into the financial package that changed the way operators can now report promotional revenue. If you have been in the state operating for more than 12 months, you can no longer deduct it. The results of that have been instantaneous. We've only had 2 months of it, but so far, in those first 2 months, there was more than $7.5 million in tax revenue. That is a third of the tax receipts for the year. Granted, some of it has come from the fact that holds are again high, but when you look at the amount of promotional revenue from the start of last football season, when it was 17 million, 16 million, 15 million, 17 million, you had almost 70 million in promotional revenue deducted.
Wow.
In the last 4 months of 2021. And at a 15% rate, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not going into the tax coffer. That's $17.5 million that you did not see. So to their credit, they made an adjustment, and I'm sure there was some hand wringing from the operator side of it. But if the operators there are making this 30 million plus a month on practically every month like they have been doing as handle fluctuates, parting with that money is not going to hurt as much, especially when it's going to the state. And I forget what it's specifically earmarked for, but Virginia does have specific earmarks for sports betting revenue. So to their credit, they solved it. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of the version 2.0 states that have launched. You look at Louisiana, which limits promotional spend to $5 million per operator per year, which I think is one of the greatest innovations I've seen when it comes to this. It fosters business strategy. And even seeing Louisiana's numbers in September and seeing only $350,000 and $370,000 in promotional spend because everyone burned a good deal of powder launching in January and February for the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl. It was interesting to see that dynamic. And then you look at Virginia, you look at other states like Connecticut, where the promotional revenue deduction is going to be on a sliding scale on a year basis, losing 5 percentage points each time. Those wrinkles that other states are now incorporating as part of best practices, in the long run helps both themselves and helps the industry as you get this next version of expansion. Whether that includes the other Holy Grail states is yet to be seen, but you need at least the optics of being compatible with a state as opposed to simply trying to keep all the money for yourself.
Stick around. We'll be right back with more House of Cards.
You're listening to House of Cards.
Your Majesty, the royal wrestlers await.
I'll bet on the little guy. How much? 3,000 guineas, 2 geese, and a duck. That's a foul bet.
Welcome back to House of Cards. Dave Weishaupt with you. For those of you just joining us, I am talking with Chris Altruda from SportsHandle.com, USBets.com, and Better Collective. You know, one state I have been incredibly impressed with, especially after reading your article in SportsHandle.com, is Indiana. I mean, the state has hit some milestones and broke some records, and I've been extremely impressed with the sports betting industry in that state. What's the latest coming out of Indiana?
Indiana was part of the September hit parade. It cracked $50 million in revenue, which, again, when you look at it from outside, you're just like, really, $50 million, Indiana, really, kind of thing. And they unfortunately don't break out by sport, but you can imagine the parlay and the football was there. But I go back for Indiana. I go back to the fact that state's regulatory body, the Indiana Gaming Commission, is one of the most nimble in the country, if not the most. It's a group that works in tandem. It doesn't work top down that much. There is a chairman, but it's not like he sets the pace and everyone just goes from there. These are people who interact constantly.
Yeah.
I was still really impressed during the Caesars El Dorado merger, when Caesars had to divest properties in order to have that merger continue to progress on a state-by-state level, where every commissioner had something specific to address during that process. And they keep doing that as well. It's a state that keeps, there has been some movement in and out of sports betting places. We've lost Fubo, but at the same time, Sports Illustrated entered.
Yeah.
There have been the betting exchange that for the moment escapes my name has actually transitioned to going from S Markets, has gone from standard sports betting to transitioning to being the exchange it wanted to be. So that state does very well for itself. And I think one of the other funny parts about Indiana, when you talk about the whole gaming sphere, is that it's not afraid of Illinois. It's not afraid of Chicago. It has 3 casinos right on the state line, just daring them to not come over the state line and gamble. I did a feature on the Hard Rock location in Gary because I would look at these state revenue reports for the casino, and the baccarat numbers were just insane.
Wow.
And so finally I called up. I said, I go, what are you doing? And I went in, and Hard Rock has created I don't want to say underground, because when baccarat is drawing a table drop of $26 million a month, it's not exactly underground.
Yeah.
But it has this
culture that marketers would call it a niche market. How's that?
Niche market, but it also caters to the Asian community, because it's a popular game in that Asian community. Yeah. And there's outreach on multiple levels, at a local level, at a state, at a regional level, at even an interstate level, because they have the Hard Rock brand and they can pull that client list and make specials as well. I went there to watch baccarat on a Saturday night, and the cultural phenomenon was one thing, but watching people drop well beyond the table minimum per hand was just mind-blowing. I watched someone put $6,000 on a hand, and I was having an anxiety attack watching them.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
That is an interesting game. I mean, just to stand around, I don't play baccarat. I don't even understand baccarat, but just to sit and watch it is an experience in itself.
It is, and on top of that, the way, and I don't like stereotyping, but the way that the Asian community plays that game, it's a different breed of intensity on top of it.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, the way Hard Rock is set up, you have the main tables outside, and there's a high limit table next to it. There's also an Asian restaurant within that sphere. So people will play on both sides, but what's visible is the board that has the recap of the hands. Mm-hmm. And they're visible from like the high level side can see what's going on the main table can see what's on the high level side. So if someone senses that a run could happen, they start feeding into the area. And then one of the other things that this Hard Rock does is they take the action from the people standing. Like the people sitting will put it on their spot. So you keep getting this cycle where it just keeps building and building and building and building. And then when somebody hits, then it gets even crazier for like this 10 to 15 minute span, hoping that the second hit comes. And if the second hit comes, everyone then just like kind of like goes back to their own areas trying to make that first buzz hit again. And it just keeps going on and on and on, like all night. And it was just wild to watch. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. Indiana on a gaming whole has done very well for itself. And they really should be lauded for how they brought sports betting into the space. And also just the fact that they really don't back down from any challenges that are presented to them.
So in terms of sports betting and gambling news, what should we be looking for in the coming months? I know Ohio is all set to launch in January. I know California has some ballot questions dealing with sports betting. But what are the big stories we should be looking out for in the coming months?
I mean, my personal belief is that the California thing is dead on arrival. Right. I think I don't think it was marketed correctly. And I think for the first time, the sports betting operators realized that you just can't throw money at something to make it work to your end. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a very sobering lesson that had to be learned. I think one of the other things that may or may not be addressed, depending on how the federal court system winds its way through, is Hard Rock in Florida with regards to sports betting there. I originally thought when that deal was announced that it would not survive the scrutiny of the courts, and to an extent, based on where it is now, that seemed to be borne out. Texas, that will start up again next year because the assembly meets every other year. There was progress last year by the fact that Representative Huberty brought it to the committee's attention, made his pitch. I have not followed up with him recently to find out what kind of tweaks he made, if any. But I think that they can now see it on their fence because Louisiana is live for mobile, and even at $200 million a month in handle, which Louisiana is going to do during football season, if not a little more, I think Texas people are going to take a little more notice, especially when they're just simply going over the state line to make a bet and turn around now, as opposed to going to just, say, maybe going to Lake Charles for a casino and spending like 2 or 3 hours there and then coming back. You have people now doing the sports betting thing of just making sure you're over the state line, checking your geolocation, downloading the app, making the bet, and turning around. I think at some point that's going to register a little more with Texas legislators. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think otherwise right now. Ohio's, I kind of admire the chaos that Ohio is going to bring on January 1st.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. The concept of being able to go to Kroger's, buy some beer, and make a bet appeals to me on just a very chaotic human level. Mm-hmm. So I look forward to that. I'm glad that Ohio is taking a page out of the Michigan playbook and doing the simultaneous launch with the mobile operation. I think that's very important. And I'm looking forward to seeing how fast that market matures. I think that one has the potential to be like Illinois and be like Pennsylvania in the sense that when it's operating on all cylinders, it could make a run at Nevada size handle. Granted, it might not happen until maybe year 2, but I think that population is large enough and also sports mad enough where they can make that happen.
Chris, we're running out of time, but can you give out your websites where people can read your articles and also your social media address so next time you hit Circa, we can all follow along with you?
Sure. The casino stuff can be found at usbets.com. The sports betting centric stuff can be found at sportshandle.com. My Twitter handle is Altruda73. It's ALTRUDA, the number 7, the number 3.
Chris Altruda from Better Collective, usbets.com and sportshandle.com. Thanks so much for coming on and giving us an update about what's going on in the gambling and sports betting worlds. Always great to have you on, so please come back on soon and keep us updated on the big gambling news stories of the day. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dave. Always appreciate being on. Thank you.
Well, that'll do it for us this week. I'll see you next time on House of Cards.
across a desert plain. You build a house of cards around a loveless heart. Wild country in your head, gone dead, riverbed.